Britain's senior police chiefs have warned the Prime Minister they will face stark choices about which crimes to prioritise investigating amid fears over spending cuts. Head of the Met Police, Sir Mark Rowley, was one of those who wrote directly to Keir Starmer telling him that any spending cuts would have far-reaching consequences and we could see fewer officers and they will need to stop prioritising certain lower-level crimes. Let's have a look then at what we think the crimes that they have to keep investigating are. And I actually went to ChatGPT just to see what the robots are saying this morning. What are the most serious crimes? Let's just see. If you're asking the police to definitely investigate some things. There we are. Great question. Thank you very much. The serious crimes: murder, manslaughter, rape, aggravated assault. Those are the top 4 crimes against persons. Then against property: arson, robbery, burglary, aggravated. Then organised and white-collar crime are listed as the most serious: human trafficking, terrorism, drug trafficking, money laundering and corruption. So those are... And then other, it's not worth not missing these out. Other notable serious crimes: kidnapping, war crimes and genocide. You don't want to forget that. And child exploitation. Rewind, though. Rewind for a second. And we'll just go back here. We mentioned burglary as one of the most serious crimes. Do we mean that? Do the police feel that? Because have a look at this. Police solved no burglaries in half the country. This is the Telegraph about a year and a half ago. And they pointed out that in October 2022, all 43 police chiefs in England and Wales had a press conference where they said, right, from now on, we're going to investigate every single burglary. Now, have a look at this graph. So this is the proportion of burglaries resulting in a charge in England and Wales. And by the way, this is 8%, so it's not even 1 in 10 at this point. And it's low, and it's coming down. This is about 2015 or so. It's coming down, fewer and fewer. We were at about 4 or 5% of burglaries resulting in a charge. 2020, 2021. We get to 2022, they say, right, from now on, we're going to investigate all home burglaries, and what happens? Even fewer result in a charge. Now, it might be they were going to some burglaries that they couldn't solve, but my goodness, we're now down at just under, as of a couple of years ago, just under 4% of burglaries resulting in a charge. So you might say burglary, listed by ChatGPT as a serious crime, has already gone. Now, there are other crimes which you think, well, actually, do the police need to investigate, let us say, harm against the person when the person who is the victim is actually complicit or agrees to it? Are there crimes the police shouldn't be investigating? This is a famous case, Lasky, Jaggard and Brown. They were sadomasochists who used instruments to injure their own genitals. Why was that investigated? They wanted it to happen. There was a big protest when it happened. This is another guy, Dr. Evil, tongue splitting. Customers came and had their tongues split as a cosmetic procedure. He goes to jail. This fellow says, look, we need the law to be on our side here. If we're doing all body tattoos, this guy had a nipple removed, for example. Why are we being prosecuted when we've agreed to it? Why do you prosecute that guy? Surely there's no crime. His customers asked for it. Separately, Police Scotland said, we've got an idea. We're going to stop investigating certain crimes. A report of damage to a car bumper we didn't go to. A caller who returned home after 4 weeks to find 2 garden gnomes missing. We didn't go to. A caller who left their bag unattended in a park and realised their phone was missing when they got home. We didn't go to. And they said, Police Scotland said, as a result of that, they got better approval ratings because the police were free to investigate things they probably should investigate. What do you think of all that? Isn't that fascinating?
Fascinating, but it's still not a serious crime. Like, you couldn't really say they would have to, drop it.
No, but you could start by saying, look, if 3 sadomasochists get together in a room and use a cheese board to injure each other, you don't need the police for that.
Maybe not, but how often does that happen? And how much
I agree, it's a rare. It was a very important...
a rogue thing to
It's known as Crown versus Brown, that case, and it's a very important point. But police investigating...
It was in my head. I didn't want it in my head, thank you.
Well, what about the Police Scotland thing, then? Where Police Scotland say, if you come back after 4 weeks and you say 2 garden gnomes have been stolen, I'm sorry. Yeah. We're not going to investigate it. Yeah. What do you think?
I think you have to have a reasonable test, don't you? Reasonableness test. And I think, like the person who leaves their bag in the park, you can't really complain.
A crime.
That. My overall, though, you had Robert Jenrick on your set, I think, last week,
Yeah.
talking about his video about fare dodging on the tube. And I think one of the interesting things was there's quite a lot of people sort of higher up in society, if you like, were quite sniffy about that video and said it doesn't really matter, fare dodging, etc. And actually, I think now that video has been seen 20 million times. It's been an extraordinary sensation because out there, people who pay their £2.50 or whatever for their, bus or their tube or their whatever, they think they're outraged when they see people dodging fares.
Yeah.
And when the police say, well, we're not going to, worry about small crimes, they're not small crimes to most people, they're crimes.
Well, dishonesty is dishonesty, you're right.
Yeah.
I don't know, the burglary one's interesting, isn't it? So if I say to ChatGPT, what are the 10 most serious crimes? They put burglary in there. Burglary is dropping off now as an offence almost. And the chances of being caught, you could literally burgle 20 houses before you've got any chance of being caught. Pat is in London. Which crimes do you think the police could... I've got a little board here, Pat. Which crimes could the police say, look, we're not going to do these anymore?
Good morning, Jeremy. Pat Jennings here in London. There's no crime that should be ignored. Totally no crime. How we've got into this situation, Jeremy, Pat Jennings in London, it's 2008. David Cameron, the Conservative government, decided to cut police, and we're now suffering. We had in the United States of America, they had in one city where they had cut the crime, graffiti. I was on a train yesterday in the Central Line, and I was disgusted to see graffiti all over the place and torn down.
Okay.
We must cut. If I was Commissioner of the Met Police, I would say to the government, give me the money, give me the infrastructure. I walked around London yesterday. I didn't even see one police officer, not one police officer.
But Pat, this is an argument that comes from, look at this big load of white card here. I want to write something on it. Because if the police haven't got the resources to investigate every crime, you've got to tell them what to ignore. You can't just say you've got to investigate everything.
No, what we need to do, Jeremy, is Pat Jennings is saying that it's up to the chief constables and the commissioner of the Met Police to say to the government, you give us the money.
All right, Pat. Thank you very much. Nice to hear from you, Pat Jennings. Maria in Portsmouth, hi.
Right, you can't ignore every crime. You have to investigate every single one of them because...
All right, I'm going to have to write this down because everyone's saying the same thing. So investigate all crimes. OK.
Yes, but that small crime might lead you to a bigger gang.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, I agree. And they start...
They start them off.
Investigate your spelling.
I'm sorry. So the graphics department is good today. You say, so Pat Jennings says investigate all crimes. Maria, you wouldn't say, look, what about the case? I'll give you an example, the Dr. Evil case, where he's got customers, they want to have crazy cosmetic procedures, they want to have tongue splitting or nipple removal. Why are the police getting involved in that?
Well, they have to get involved in that because it's illegal and he shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
They're paid to do a job.
Yeah. So you would say just investigate everything?
Well, yeah, we paid for them.
Yeah.
And if we've got a burglary down the road from us, what's to say they won't come back again if the police don't investigate
listen,
it?
totally, on burglary, there's no question, they all should be investigated. But the clear-up rate is shocking. And I think, actually, when you look at ChatGPT, interestingly, the answer they gave, if you look closely, wasn't straight burglary where you're away on holiday. It's aggravated. In other words, you're in the house. And so that's a different order. I think also you've got to look at the victims, haven't you? You've got to say, how did this impact on the victim? Yeah. So a purse snatched from a 90-year-old could kill her. Whereas if it's a 25-year-old, she'd probably say, I'll get another one.
A friend of mine was burgled recently, quite an older lady. She wasn't in the house, but the fact is, when she came home, all her things had been rumbled through, and she hasn't been able to sleep properly since. No, this incident is now over. Well, it must be about 2 years ago. Yeah. And the fact is that she feels that person could come back at any moment. She feels that safe place where she lived for so many years is no longer safe to her. OK. And so burglary is
I agree with you, but let's turn it around. When I was presenting Crime Watch, we had a crime where a criminal gang lord was in his massive garden in, I think, Surrey, and another criminal climbed over the fence and shot him in the head. Now, do you say we're not going to investigate crimes where criminals murder each other?
No, it's still murder.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to make choices.
Yeah, but I think the choices are things like, do you know what? Change the law on petty drugs. So, like, let's say someone is buying drugs for their own solitary use. Let them use it. Let that teenager do weed if that's what they want to do.
All right, and just do the dealer.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So I think we've got to like almost take other crimes off the table so they're no longer illegal.
Look, our attempt to take crimes off the table, look how far that's got. We literally have one word on there, and it's not relevant. After that, it's also poorly, what is it, manual kerning hasn't worked there. Ayo and Tim are with us. Later we'll be asking if the government is right to blame the weather for an increase in migrant crossings. Now, more calls on whether there are any crimes the police can ignore. I had a good go earlier trying to suggest some. Absolutely.
You're not at your whiteboard anymore.
Well, look,
You've given up your job.
Let's try and help the debate here by just thinking of some that maybe you could say the police shouldn't investigate. So we've already done, let's say, edgy cosmetics, let's say, where somebody does something to somebody else that they asked for.
Yeah.
No, you basically nominated sort of low-level drug abuse.
Yeah, you said taking, what is it, smoking hash.
Yeah, like if individual use of drugs.
But until it's decriminalised, you think it should be policed.
Maybe we should just decriminalise it.
All right, I know this is silly, but this is a genuine one from Scotland. Garden gnome theft.
No, come on.
Well, that's what they said. They said we cannot come out.
Yeah.
A woman who calls and says, I've had 2 garden gnomes stolen. She'd been away for 4 weeks, and they said, look, we can't come out for that.
I feel like you shouldn't make...
So I'm going to put gnome theft. I mean, obviously these are going to sound silly.
Yeah.
Can I mention as well car wing mirrors? I had an Audi car some years ago. I was furious. I come and the wing mirror's been removed. Clearly, I would say, taken by another Audi driver whose wing mirror had been damaged. Yeah. So he wanted a free replacement. I report it to the police because of insurance and stuff. A month later, I think, well, I'm going to find out to see if there's any progress. I mean, I'm assuming they're investigating it. So I ring them and I say, the case number is 45861. It's the removal of illegal removal of my wing mirror. Yeah. Literally, I can hear them trying not to laugh. And I said, I just need to know about the investigation, how many officers are on it, and are there any clues? And they said, well, they're trying. And then he said, well, we've done what's called a telephone investigation. I said, what's that? They said it's when one force rings another force. So I think we would put theft of wing mirror. Because at least if they say we're not going to investigate that, we now know. I know these are silly, but this is the kind of thing. OK, let's talk to Chris in Somerset. We've got a few here, Chris. What do you think? Are there crimes the police could ignore to allow them to concentrate on the big crimes?
Yes, the police are sitting around on their arses in the police stations looking online for people who are expressing views they don't like. They should mind their own business. Okay. It's free speech. Unless they're actually threatening people, then it's no business of the police. So and for Keir Starmer should keep his nose out of people's business and opinions.
Well, it's an interesting one. Online abuse, there was MPs who've had serious death threats. People have been stalked online. That's serious. But maybe we come to this Lucy Connolly case, don't we, where she gets 31 months for saying some very unpleasant things about migrants, and people cross about that. Maybe they should just get off the internet. What do you think, Ayo?
I think that's a crime that we should be investigating.
Really?
I don't think that's one we can knock off the list. Absolutely not.
OK.
I think it can cause real harm.
Chris, we should investigate it because actually, what's the difference between being abused online and being abused by somebody standing outside your window?
Because nobody can get hurt by being abused online.
I don't know about that.
It's tricky, this, because MPs are being murdered, and I don't know. It's not real. It's online. It's not real. What about that?
I don't think so. I don't think we can say it's online. It's not real. I mean, we just look at the cases of children who've been bullied online and taken their lives. Like it's not something that we get to, I think, throw away. And it creates, I think, a cultural phenomenon that makes it normalising to dehumanise a group of people, be elected officials or demographics, people like migrants. And I think that's really dangerous. I think it's very dangerous. It almost normalises it.
Chris, I've written it down. I put a question mark there. Thank you. Davina in West Yorkshire, can you add something? Is there any crime the police could actually helpfully ignore?
Not really. I think that a lot of the crimes that are not investigated are by younger people or children.
Yeah.
And that gives them the confidence then to go on and commit more crime because they know nothing's going to happen to them.
Yep.
And they're the people you should get early, like anything with children. Get them early and it stops them in the tracks. But nothing happens, so it just gives them more confidence to do more crimes. They get away with that and then they get on to bigger crime.
Yeah, well, that's Tim agrees with that, don't you?
I can completely agree. And what Davina, I think, is saying is there's a theory that became popular in New York about 20, 30 years ago, and it was called zero tolerance policing. And once you tolerate, like, broken windows, it's also called the broken windows theory of crime, you tolerate broken windows in a built-up area or graffiti, and then you suddenly find that there's more and more crimes like that because a young person gets to push against the state, and if they don't get a pushback early on in their life, they'll do bigger and bigger crimes as time goes on. So, Davina for Chief Constable, I say.
Thanks, Davina. Carl in Northamptonshire, hi.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, the reality is here, we've got to find some crimes that we can tell the police they don't have to investigate because they haven't got the resources to do them all. We've tried to do some here.
Cannabis use, because you smell it just about everywhere you walk anyway.
What's that?
Legalised it. Cannabis use.
Oh, okay, right, yeah. We've got that smoking hash.
Yeah, you smell it everywhere that you go anyway. And the money they'd save in fighting that crime and the money they could get through taxation from it, they could put back into the
Ayo agrees. That's Ayo's already said. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Legalise it, make money from it, help fund other services.
But what happens if it's strong enough now to give some people psychosis?
Exactly.
And your kids then take it, you say, look, I don't think you should be smoking that stuff, and they say it's perfectly legal, Dad.
But that's why we need to legalise it and create processes around it. Because imagine if the government made it actually tenable for you could only access, let's say, low-strength weed that didn't create psychosis. You can control what children are using. Right now, we have no control of what they're using.
All right.
We're legalising it.
OK, Carl, thank you. Stephen in Manchester, can you give me a crime we could say to the police, you don't have to investigate this?
I don't think any crime should be refused access.
Right, so you're up the top here. You'll investigate everything then?
Well, I'm referring, as I mentioned to the lady when I asked to speak to you, I remember I've lived in my address for over 20 years and I've seen some events in that period, including the average age on this road is in the 70s.
Yep. So
and I've seen people beaten up at their front door, and even the warden on the estate or the police never got in touch with the local residents to warn them.
But
the police don't just ignore the crimes, they ignore the public.
Yeah. All right. So, crimes of violence. The whole point of getting them off these ones is to put them on the crimes of violence, isn't it? That's what we're going to do. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for all your calls on this. It's interesting that if you say to people, what crimes should the police not investigate? A lot of people say there's no such category. If it's a crime, it's a crime.
Yeah.
Later, we'll be asking what you make of advice that we should only drink one glass of wine a year. Does that sound reasonable to you? After the break.